Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for calling in for the IBS Q&A. I'm excited to get started. We'll give people a few more minutes to join, but if you could just type in the chat box and confirm that you can see my screen and you can hear my voice. Okay, great. It looks like everyone on the call can hear and see, so that's wonderful. So if you're just now joining, you should see a slide that says IBS Q&A, and we will get started in just a couple of minutes. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it off. Thank you all so much for calling in this evening, and I'm excited to do this webinar for y'all. I really just kind of thought that maybe a Q&A session would be helpful for everyone to get some of your questions answered that you might have been, wondering or just haven't been able to get good answers for. And so just to be able to help in any way I can makes me happy. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Obviously, if you're on this call, I imagine that you have been struggling with IBS or some sort of digestive problems for a while and haven't quite gotten it resolved completely yet. Maybe you've tried certain diets or certain supplements and just haven't found a solid resolution, and so you're looking for some other answers. And so I hope to get some of those questions answered for you tonight. And everyone, we got a great response in terms of the questions that were submitted. So we've got a lot of great questions to go through. If any questions come up during the webinar, feel free to type them in the chat box. And if we have time at the end, I will try to get to those as well. But we've got a lot of material to cover. So we'll go ahead and get started. So based on, and these symptoms, these top IBS symptoms, they came straight from the survey questions. I'd asked you guys to list your top 3 symptoms and then your top 3 questions. And all of these symptoms were very consistent among just about all of you. And it's interesting because they also fall right in line with your typical IBS symptoms. So bloating, abdominal pain and distension, constipation, diarrhea, nausea, food sensitivities, low energy and fatigue, difficulty breathing, anxiety, and burping and gas. All of these, are completely common for IBS. And, you know, many of you are dealing with this stuff on a daily basis, and it can be very frustrating, very discouraging, very uncomfortable. And it can make, you know, going out in social settings a little more complicated and very stressful. So one of the common questions I got in the survey, and this is being asked consistently by so many people, is what food should I eat? Because it's it makes perfect sense that the food that you're putting in your body that's going through your digestive system can either help or hurt your digestive issues. And unfortunately, a lot of conventional doctors aren't addressing the food part of it. You know, they may say find your trigger foods, or, you know, eat more fiber, drink more water. But a lot of times those recommendations aren't enough, and sometimes they make the situation worse. And so there are certain foods that you can incorporate and certain protocols you can follow that can really help alleviate your symptoms, minimize your symptoms. For some people, diet alone will do the trick. For many of us, diet is not going to be enough, but it can help significantly in reducing your symptoms. And so what you really, really want to focus on is including gut healing, soothing foods, things that are very easy to digest and just very easy on the digestive system. So you don't want to eat anything inflammatory or rough. And the things you absolutely want to avoid if you're dealing with chronic IBS is gluten for sure, followed by grains. Generally, when you take out all grains, even grain-like foods that aren't necessarily considered grains, like corn and quinoa, those can be very, very difficult to digest. So taking those out can be very helpful. Taking out sugar, soy, and dairy. I would start with eliminating those big five and then kind of tweak things from there. But cutting those out can really help reduce the inflammation. It can give your digestive system a break and just take some of the burden off. It can significantly reduce the bloating and the gas, and really help with the constipation and diarrhea as well. The other thing with this, since it is going to just really ease your digestive system, as you get on a more real food diet, you may find that you have more energy because your body isn't using all of its energy to digest your food. So some things that you want to include in a gut healing diet are high quality animal protein. Animal protein is so soothing and so nutrient dense that it is fantastic for healing the gut. And I will say, I'll get to this later actually, but I know some of you may on this call may feel like, well, animal protein kind of, it's hard for me to digest, and I feel very full and bloated and all of this when I eat it. And there's probably a reason for that, and that is something that I will address. But implementing and including more animal protein can be very helpful in healing your gut, and it's a great source of essential amino acids that your body needs to repair itself and to function. Another one is healthy fats. So things like coconut oil and olive oil and ghee, which is clarified butter. So all of the allergenic properties of the dairy have been cooked out of it. So ghee is a really good one. Healthy fats are great for soothing the digestive system. If you tend towards constipation, then adding in a lot of healthy fats, like making your diet about 50% fat, can really help move things along because it promotes motility. So that is a good thing to include. And then fruits and vegetables. And really with fruits and vegetables, if your digestive system isn't working very well, then I'd encourage you to cook, peel, and even depending on the state of your digestion, possibly puree your fruits and vegetables. That will make them a lot easier to break down. You're taking off the skin, which can be very, very difficult to digest. It's insoluble fiber. And so that can be really harsh on the digestive system. And when you cook them, it just breaks things down a little bit. And once you puree them, then they're kind of already in a pre-digested format. So it makes it very, very easy for your digestive system and allows you to really absorb those nutrients. So I got a couple of questions related to this. So many of you have done some testing with your doctors and everything comes back normal. And that's very common actually. So this question was, I had a stool test done, it was normal, what should I do next? And the first thing I want to say is that if you had a stool test done with a conventional doctor, it likely was just a one-day stool test. And those are not always the best. They're not very accurate. Doing just a one-day stool sample can miss a lot of things. And it also depends what exactly it was testing for. It may have just been testing for, one or two different types of pathogenic bacteria. I don't have a lot of details into what type of stool test this was, but my inclination is that it was not a very accurate stool test, and that there are some other things you can do that may uncover some of the underlying causes. So another thing I want to recommend is, if you've been dealing with these IBS type symptoms for a while, that it is good to go see a gastroenterologist and rule out some of the potentially critical conditions that it could be, such as ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, or even, hopefully not, but, there is potential for cancer. So getting a colonoscopy and an upper endoscopy is definitely a good idea. I know those are invasive procedures, but it can really, get a good look inside of your GI tract and see what's going on, see if there is any inflammation, see if there are any signs of inflammatory bowel disease. And if that's the case, then, while the dietary approach and things are very similar, at least what the condition is. Otherwise, if you've ruled out everything, like IBD and celiac and any of those types of conditions, then you're usually left with the diagnosis of IBS. And at that point, there's not much a conventional doctor can do other than prescribe you medications to help you manage your symptoms. And a lot of those even don't work very well. So what I like to use, there are several functional diagnostic tests that I particularly find helpful. One is a more comprehensive stool analysis, and the one I use is a 3-day stool analysis, and it tests for a variety of types of infections. And so it tests for different pathogenic bacteria such as H. pylori. It also tests for different parasites, and both of these both parasites and pathogenic infections are very common. So it's nice to be able to do one test that will test for kind of a variety of infections to rule those out. It also does look for candida. However, a stool test is not the best way to test for candida. But for some of my clients, I have had candida show up. And so, it's not, like I said, candida is usually better tested through a urine test, but this particular test can sometimes detect candida. So it's a great test to start with. The other test I really like is an adrenal profile. And you may have had your cortisol and DHEA levels checked through a blood test by your doctor, but again, not the most accurate way to test the active cortisol and active DHEA in your body. So what I like to use, it's a saliva test. It tests for cortisol at 4 points throughout the day, in the morning, noon, afternoon, and night. It also looks at DHEA levels. And this is important because cortisol and DHEA are two primary hormones produced by your adrenal glands that are so critical for gut health. Cortisol is the primary anti-inflammatory hormone in the gut, and DHEA is what really helps protect the immune system, fight off infections, and prevent infections. So if those are off, then it's very likely you're going to have gut infections. That's why I find that so many people with IBS or some type of digestive issue is in pretty bad adrenal fatigue, usually stage 2 or stage 3 adrenal fatigue. And so you really have to support both. You have to support the adrenals while you're supporting the gut in order to heal properly. So I always do an adrenal profile. And then the other thing I like to do is a SIBO breath test. And this, a lot of conventional doctors now are offering this test. It's becoming more mainstream, but the majority of IBS cases are actually SIBO. And so I think it's a really good idea to do a SIBO breath test to see if there is any overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. Again, SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And the SIBO breath test is, you may hear it called a hydrogen breath test. And I recommend using, there are 2 different substrates that you can use, which is what you will drink before the test. I find the lactulose version to be the most accurate because it will test for SIBO in the lower part of your small intestine, which is where it's most common. That's where it's most prevalent. So doing a lactulose breath test, this is a 3-hour test, and you breathe in, you basically breathe into a bag every 20 minutes, and it measures levels of gas. And it measures 2 different types of gas, hydrogen and methane. And the reason it looks at those 2 gases is because those are the 2 gases that bacteria will produce. So if you are producing high levels of either of those gases, then it is indicative of an overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. And what has been shown is that if you are positive for methane, you likely are dealing with more constipation. If you're positive for hydrogen, you're likely dealing with more diarrhea. And the pharmaceutical treatments are a little different for each of those, but there's also herbal treatments that you can do as well, which are very effective, and studies have shown them to be as effective as the pharmaceutical options. So those are the tests that I recommend doing, and it really gives us a good idea of what is going on. IBS doesn't just happen, something caused it, and we need to fix it. So these can really help navigate us in the right direction. So what causes chronic diarrhea? And there are a number of things that can cause diarrhea as well as constipation. And so this list kind of is an answer for both diarrhea and constipation. And so there are many things. It could be gluten. It could be food sensitivities in general are causing your diarrhea and or constipation. Celiac disease is a big one. So I always advise getting tested for celiac. Unfortunately, a lot of these tests are not 100% accurate. It's a good starting place, but sometimes it can take a while to detect celiac. So that's why I recommend just eliminating gluten from your diet anyways, because so many of us, if we don't have celiac, we have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And gluten has been shown to be inflammatory for everyone. Some people just don't experience the horrible side effects of it, but eliminating gluten can be very helpful when you're dealing with digestive issues. Another cause is IBD, or inflammatory bowel disease. And those are things like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. And so that is why I think it's a good idea to do that colonoscopy to rule those conditions out. Another one is SIBO. So SIBO can cause diarrhea, it can cause constipation, it can cause alternating diarrhea, constipation. One of the biggest complaints people have who have SIBO is bloating and abdominal distension, but then most of them also have the diarrhea and constipation to go along with it. Leaky gut can cause diarrhea and constipation. Leaky gut is when your intestinal lining has been damaged, either by a gut infection or stress or food sensitivities or a combination of a number of different things. But what happens is that large particles start seeping into your bloodstream through the lining of your intestine, which is not supposed to happen. So large food particles, bacteria, toxins can get through, and it causes an immune response throughout your body. So a lot of people with leaky gut don't even have digestive issues. They may experience inflammation in other areas of their body, such as chronic headaches or depression or joint pain or skin conditions. But leaky gut can also trigger digestive issues such as diarrhea or constipation. Gut dysbiosis. So if you have any type of imbalance in your gut flora that can cause diarrhea or constipation. Gut infections are a big one. You know, parasites and bacterial infections and candida can all contribute to diarrhea. And like I said, food sensitivities as well. So that's why it's so important to do some of these tests so you can rule out what the cause is, what the cause isn't, and what the cause is, and start to narrow things down a little bit. So if you have SIBO, how do you heal it? Well, the first thing I recommend is getting tested to confirm that SIBO is the problem. And again, do that with a lactulose breath test. And then there are treatment options. So you can go the pharmaceutical route, which is prescription antibiotics. And in this case, you know, I'm usually against antibiotics because they can definitely disrupt the gut flora and kill off a bunch of good bacteria. But in this case, the antibiotics used for SIBO are generally safe, and I say safe very loosely, but they don't tend to cause a lot of other side effects, and they don't tend to make things worse. So rifaximin is the antibiotic that's usually used, and that's the one I would recommend. And if you are methane positive SIBO, then you would typically do rifaximin with another antibiotic to help with the constipation. There's also an herbal protocol you can do as well. And there are a few different ones out there, but using certain antibacterial, antimicrobial herbs, such as oregano and berberine and neem and garlic, those are all great natural antibacterial, antimicrobial agents that can be used to treat SIBO. Again, you know, obviously if you're going the prescription route, you're working with a doctor. If you opt for an herbal protocol, I highly recommend working with a practitioner to determine dosing and make sure the combination is right and that that will work. And then in terms of prevention, you know, once you've done a protocol, you've retested, and that's one thing I will also encourage you to do is after you've done a treatment protocol, be sure to retest, make sure the SIBO is gone, and then you want to prevent it from relapsing, and you can do this by following a low fermentation diet, such as a low FODMAP diet. I think that SCD, the specific carbohydrate diet, along with low FODMAPs, is a great way to go. That way you're eating nothing but real food. You're still eliminating the grains, but you're sticking with the low FODMAP fruits and vegetables to prevent any further fermentation in the gut and feeding of that bacteria. And we'll get into diets in a little bit. Okay, I have been advised not to eat raw foods. Will I ever be able to eat raw foods again? That's a great question. And yes, I would say if you are currently dealing with digestive issues, whether it's IBS, leaky gut, whatever it is, avoid raw fruits and vegetables. They're very difficult to break down, especially if they have the skin on them. They can just contribute to your symptoms of gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. And so they just really aggravate an inflamed and damaged gut. So I would highly encourage you to start peeling, cooking, and sometimes even pureeing your fruits and vegetables. And I would avoid raw fruits and vegetables for a good period of time, really until your gut is healed. And then, you know, once your symptoms are resolved, then slowly start to incorporate some raw foods back in and see how you tolerate them. But, you know, start with, you know, things like bananas. If they're raw, they're for many people, they're better tolerated than something like kale, which is really rough and can be very aggravating. So, you know, there are different kind of scales and levels of vegetables and fruits, and some are just easier to digest in general when they're raw, and others are a little more difficult. So I wouldn't start with raw broccoli because that causes a ton of people problems, even if they don't have digestive issues. So, you know, slowly reincorporate them. But yeah, for now, cook them, peel them, puree them, and you'll find that you tolerate them a lot better. So this is one question that I don't know a whole lot about, but the question is, what is the link between POTS and IBS? So POTS is postural tachycardia syndrome. And I do not know a lot about this condition, so I'm not going to really answer it in great detail because I probably don't have the information you're looking for. But I will say that some data suggests that POTS and IBS are conditions of the autonomic nervous system. So if you have postural tachycardia syndrome, then you are more prone to another ANS condition such as IBS. So I think that's an interesting viewpoint. Again, I haven't done enough research to really formulate an opinion on that, and I just don't know enough about this particular condition. So that's the answer I have. It may not be what you're looking for, but it looks like studies have shown that there's a definite link. So what supplements should I take? This again was a very common question. And it's different for each individual. That's why I would encourage you to work with a practitioner to really do the testing to figure out what is going on so you can tailor supplements to your specific condition. But in general, I'll recommend a few. So for general wellness, I think these supplements are good for just about anyone to be on, and that's a high quality multivitamin, vitamin D3, cod liver oil. And I recommend cod liver oil over regular fish oil because it is extremely high quality. It's got a good amount of the EPA and DHA, which are the two types of omega-3s that you really want. And it doesn't have some of these fish oils can have really high levels. You don't want to go way too high and go to the extreme. You just want a good amount that you're getting on a daily basis, and cod liver oil has that. It also has natural vitamin A and vitamin D, which is fantastic. So you're just getting a lot of support with cod liver oil that you wouldn't find in other fish oil supplements. And again, it's high quality. It's it's guaranteed potency, purity, all of that. So it's a very good choice. Also, a high quality probiotic. Of course, you want to continue to support your microflora as well as your immune system, and a probiotic will help you do that. Probiotics can also help with motility and just regulating the motility in your digestive tract. So probiotics are very helpful for that. And sometimes you may have to try a few probiotics to find the one that really works for you, because everyone's different. For digestive support, so general digestive support, I recommend digestive enzymes, because if you are having digestive issues, you're likely not breaking down your food and absorbing your nutrients very well. So digestive enzymes can really help break down your carbs, your fats, your proteins, and help you absorb those nutrients a little better. It can also help reduce some of the symptoms that you're experiencing after you eat. So it can help reduce the bloating and the gas and some of those uncomfortable symptoms. The other one is betaine HCl, and this helps support your stomach acid. And stomach acid levels are so critical to healthy digestion, and many people with IBS and digestive issues are not producing enough stomach acid. And so that's one of the reasons. If you feel like really full and heavy after you eat a high protein meal, chances are you have low stomach acid, because HCl is really used, it helps break down and digest protein. So if you're not producing enough stomach acid, then you're not digesting that protein very well. So supplementing with betaine HCl can be very, very helpful. It can also help if you are experiencing some acid reflux or burping or indigestion after meals. Supplementing with betaine HCl can really help with that. Conventional wisdom has us think that if we experience heartburn or reflux, that we've got too much acid and we need to take an acid suppressant. But in fact, more often than not, the problem is not too much acid, but it's too little. Our stomach is not producing enough acid to digest and break down our food. Another good thing that HCl helps with is fighting off infections, because your stomach acid, of course, is extremely acidic. It creates a very, very acidic environment, and that helps kill off any pathogenic bacteria or parasites that may have gotten on your food. So if you don't have enough stomach acid and you're eating a meal that might be contaminated with some type of pathogen, then that pathogen can get through your stomach, still be alive, and start to infect your intestines. And that's why so many people now are, doing these stool tests and coming back with a parasite or a bacterial infection or something like that. So much of it has to do with low stomach acid. So supplementing with HCl with your protein containing meals can be very, very helpful. Another one is B complex. So a high quality B complex is not only helpful for gut health, but also for adrenal support, which again, the two, digestive wellness and adrenal wellness, go hand in hand. So a B complex can be very helpful there. Many of us, if we're not digesting our food well, we have chronic digestive issues, and we tend to be deficient in B12 and other B vitamins. So I would incorporate a B complex. Also L-glutamine. L-glutamine is an amino acid, so it's found in protein. And it is very well recognized for helping heal leaky gut and repair the intestinal lining of the gut. So supplementing with L-glutamine can be a very helpful aid in healing your leaky gut. And I like to get it in a powder form. So you just, take like a teaspoon or whatever their serving size is, and you mix it with water. It doesn't taste like anything. And you take it in between meals, because you don't want to take it with a protein meal, because it will end up competing with the protein in that meal. So you want to take it away from meals, so you make sure you absorb it all and get the most value. Okay, so what sweeteners are okay? We don't, we like to have something sweet every now and then. We don't want to have to rule out, all forms of sugar. But I would say in general, avoid most sugars, especially refined sugar, artificial sweeteners, agave, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, those types of things. If you want to use a sweetener in moderation, then you can use things like raw honey, or pure maple syrup, or pure stevia, if you can tolerate that, okay. But again, just in moderation, because if there is, an underlying infection, then that sugar is going to feed the bacteria or the parasite or the yeast, whatever is, causing some of your digestive issues. So you do just want to use it in moderation. And I know some people ask about honey, because honey is considered a higher FODMAP food. So really, I suggest testing it out, see how you tolerate it. You may do fine if you have it in small amounts. Another thing to look for is there are different types of honey. And one particular honey, I believe it's clover honey, is not high FODMAPs. It has a more even glucose to fructose ratio. So it's a lower FODMAP option. So if that's something you can find, that would be a good option. But again, if you find, pure raw honey and you have a teaspoon here and there, you may tolerate it fine. Every individual is different. So give it a try, see how it works for you. But again, natural options are the best, and I would really stick to those three. All right, this is a great question. I'm a vegetarian. What type of diet should I follow? I will say, I'm not going to tell you can't be a vegetarian, but I'm going to say you have to be extra careful. And the reason that is because so many vegetarian diets today are full of processed foods, gluten, grains, sugar, and soy, and all of these foods are damaging your gut. So you really want to avoid those foods at all costs. They're all pro-inflammatory. They're very harsh on the digestive system. They're lacking in a lot of nutrients, and they're very difficult to digest. Another thing about a lot of vegetarian diets is that it can lead to low stomach acid, because you're not getting any animal protein. And so your stomach's just it kind of stops producing the acid it needs to digest your food. So that's why so many vegetarians find that when they reintroduce protein, they don't feel very well at first. And that's because their stomach acid levels are just really low, and it's very difficult for them to digest protein. They feel full, they feel bloated, and they just feel really heavy. And so I would suggest, or at least consider, incorporating some animal proteins such as eggs and fish. I'd start with that, and start supplementing with betaine HCl to help you digest it, and see how you go, see how that works for you. But bottom line, you want to make sure you're eating real, unprocessed food. And again, I would avoid the gluten and the grains. be sure again to peel and cook your vegetables and fruits. You know, definitely keep those vegetables and fruits in your diet. But if you're open to adding in some animal protein, I think that'd be very, very helpful. Animal protein is very nutrient dense, more so than grains and soy and all of these other foods. Clean animal protein is actually has higher nutrient density than most fruits and vegetables, which a lot of people don't realize. But it has, you know, they're complete protein, so they have all of the amino acids that your body needs. And they also have a ton of vitamins that you can't get in bioavailable form from plant sources, such as your B vitamins like B12, you know, vitamin D and iron and zinc and all of these nutrients that you need for healthy digestion. Okay. All right. So what's the best diet for SIBO? Another great question. And again, I'm going to say it really depends on the individual, and it's worth testing out to see which one works for you. But I will say in general, a paleo form of diet is going to be most likely going to be the best. It's the least irritating, it's anti-inflammatory, and really what we're doing is kind of limiting the carbs, because the carbs, the starches, the sugars are ultimately what tend to cause the digestive problems and can feed infections. So diets like the GAPS diet, the specific carbohydrate diet, and low FODMAP diet are all really, really good for digestive problems in general. I will say specifically for SIBO that a lot of people find symptom relief when they eliminate high FODMAP foods. And again, those are specific types of sugars and starches. So certain fruits and vegetables are higher in FODMAPs than others. And so one diet that seems to be very, very helpful is a combination of the specific carbohydrate diet with the low FODMAP diet. And that seems to go over really well. So I would say experiment, give them a try. But again, the characteristics of the diet you want to follow is it's real unprocessed food. It's easy to digest. It's low in irritants and allergens. It's anti-inflammatory. It's nutrient dense. It's carb restricted. And of course, it's customized for you. So this is where an elimination diet can be very, very helpful, because it can help you figure out what foods serve you and which foods don't. And you can kind of tailor things to suit your needs. So just kind of expanding on that a little bit, to go into detail about some of the common problematic foods. And of course, these are the foods that you may want to try removing from your diet and see if you feel better. And of course, I've already said grains, both with and without gluten. Dairy is a common problem for a lot of people. For some people, it's just lactose. For others, they can't tolerate dairy at all because of the proteins, the casein and the whey. So taking dairy out completely for at least 30 days, sometimes longer, and then adding it back in and see how you do can be very helpful. If you do add dairy back in, I would still say avoid the high lactose products and just stick to low lactose items like butter and hard cheeses, and maybe fermented dairy. Legumes are very difficult to digest and break down, and can definitely, and they're also high in FODMAPs, so they can contribute to digestive symptoms. Sugar and starches, some fruits and nuts and seeds tend to be problematic for a lot of people. They can be very irritating. Some vegetables, those high FODMAP vegetables, can be difficult, like cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things like that. And then in terms of the fruits, it's the higher FODMAP fruits like apples and pears. So again, testing things out and seeing what works for you. And then of course, processed foods. You know, I would say avoid processed foods at all costs, because most processed foods are loaded with sugar, gluten, and soy. So I would just eliminate the processed foods. All right, how do I treat B12 deficiency? And we touched on this a little bit, you know, in terms of a real food diet and incorporating animal protein. But also a few things you want to make sure you're doing is, healing your gut with a healthy diet and any necessary supplementation to help heal your leaky gut. Doing the testing to find the underlying cause of your gut issues, and incorporating a high quality B complex vitamin with the active form of B12. So you want to look for a B complex that has it's called a methylated form of B12. That's the active form of B12 that your body can absorb. And so finding a vitamin with that form is going to make it a lot easier for your body to utilize. The other thing is to heal your adrenals, because again, you likely are in some level of adrenal fatigue, and so you really want to support your adrenals, so your body can heal and utilize the nutrients that you're feeding it. And then, as I mentioned, eat more animal protein. So, grass-fed beef has a good amount of B vitamins. Liver, I'm personally not a fan of liver. I've tried it. I just can't do it. But it is such a nutrient dense food. And you can actually find it in capsules. You can find liver powder in capsules. And so you can take that. So that is just all natural nutrients right there in a capsule for you. What diagnostic test do I need? And we touched on this a little bit, so I'll just go through this real quickly. But again, the comprehensive stool analysis, the adrenal profile, SIBO breath test if necessary, colonoscopy, and endoscopy are the big ones that I would recommend. Okay, my doctor gave me antidepressants and acid blockers. They didn't help. What now? And oh my gosh, I hear this question all the time. These are two common drugs that are prescribed with digestive issues, and a lot of times they don't work. And in particular with antidepressants, they can be extremely difficult to come off with just terrible withdrawal symptoms. And so while they may help some people, if at any point you want to get off of them, it can be very, very hard. So I would definitely think twice and think through things before you consider some of these options. But in terms of what are the next steps, I would say doing testing to figure out what is causing your symptoms. You can implement a gut healing diet immediately. That will certainly help with your symptoms. Eat plenty of clean animal protein. Amino acids are the building blocks for neurotransmitters. Okay, so you get a good supply of all of your amino acids in animal protein, and they are what's used to make your neurotransmitters like serotonin. Antidepressants or, like SSRIs help kind of give you more serotonin, but they're not producing more serotonin. They're just recycling the serotonin in your body. And so many people with gut issues have low serotonin because the majority of serotonin is made in the gut. If your gut's not functioning well, then chances are you're not producing adequate levels of serotonin, so you may experience depression, anxiety, all these other things. So that's why antidepressants are so commonly prescribed, and they also can help with the motility issue as well, but it's not always the best option. So I would say really get to the root of your IBS and implement a gut healing diet. Try supplementing with the betaine HCl with your protein meals so you can handle more protein and digest it better, and therefore absorb the protein better and all of the amino acids in it. And then add in some of the other supplements that we talked about to support your overall health and your digestion. How can I increase my energy? This is another great one because, if you've been struggling with IBS for years, then chances are you are worn out. Your body is exhausted, you're tired, you're fatigued. And you just can't seem to get enough energy. And so it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but some steps you can take right now to start just improving your energy levels is implement that nutrient-dense real food diet. I mean, this is one thing that you can do now. You can do it on your own, and you can see results, but you have to be consistent with it. You have to stick to a plan. And sometimes that can be tough because it does take planning and preparation to cook your meals. And, so you're not in a situation where you need to grab a bite to eat and you have nothing ready, so you go, you go out to eat and you get something that you know is going to make you sick. So eat a nutrient-dense real food diet. That can help a ton. Get plenty of sleep. Especially if you are, if you have sleep problems, if you don't sleep well, I would really start to implement a routine, a bedtime routine. Shut off all your electronics by like 7 o'clock at night if you can, and start to just relax and decompress. Get in bed. If you can get in bed earlier, like 9 or 9:30, and maybe read or meditate or just do something to wind down and relax your mind, and then lights off at 10, that is going to be great. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. I mean, that is like the number one thing you can do to improve your adrenal health and to promote healing. Your body restores itself and it repairs itself when you're sleeping. And so if you're not getting enough sleep, then you're losing that whole restoration period that your body needs. So it's essential to healing is getting plenty of sleep, and that will give you more energy. Test and support your adrenals, and test for and treat any gut infections. So those are the big things that you can do to start to increase your energy. Are fermented foods okay to eat with IBS? And in general, I will say yes, fermented foods are great for IBS. You really want to be promoting that good bacteria in your body, and they're great for the immune system as well. Things like fermented veggies, sauerkraut, kimchi, kvass, apple cider vinegar, these are all great. You can find them in your health food store. Look in the refrigerated section specifically for like the sauerkraut and the fermented veggies and the kimchi. You don't want to buy sauerkraut that's on, one of the shelves in the middle aisle or something like that that's not refrigerated, because that really has no beneficial probiotics in it. It's just, made with vinegar. So get the stuff that requires refrigeration. That usually means that it's truly fermented and has some good probiotics for you. Other options are homemade yogurt. And I would do like a homemade 24-hour yogurt. So it ferments for at least 24 hours. That way you can just get a good supply of probiotics. You can use coconut milk. If you tolerate dairy, you can use grass-fed dairy. And again, fermenting your own yogurt for 24 hours, if you choose a dairy option, that will get rid of all the lactose in it as well. Other options are coconut kefir, water kefir. I would avoid the store-bought yogurts. Those are usually fermented for like 4 to 6 hours, so not for very long. There's still lactose in it, and a lot of times there's added sugar and other ingredients that aren't going to be beneficial for you. So if you do yogurt, I would encourage you to make your own, but all of these options are good. Again, try it out because everyone's different. For some people, fermented foods make them feel worse. For some, they can tolerate certain fermented foods and other ones not so much. So try it out, see how you feel. But overall, the general answer is yes, they're great to eat for IBS. What is the best superfood powder to provide full spectrum of vitamins and minerals? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by superfood powder, but what I'm envisioning is one of those green superfood powders that you can find in a health food store. And I would say right now, it's best to avoid those. I would avoid protein powders and green superfood powders for now because a lot of times they contain unwanted ingredients. Specifically, those green superfood powders may have some type of sweetener. They may even have gluten or other ingredients that could potentially irritate the gut. Same with the protein powders. Some of these proteins can be aggravating, whether it's rice or whey. Definitely avoid the soy. But also some of them are sweetened with undesirable sweeteners and have some other questionable ingredients. So for now, I would just stick to real food. Take a high quality multivitamin mineral to give you that extra support in terms of your nutrients. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, you can buy grass-fed beef liver capsules or powder and use that as well for some extra nutrients. Okay, what's the best way for a teen to manage IBS? And this is tough. I didn't deal with IBS when I was a teenager, and I can't even imagine what that would be like. I know it would be very, very difficult. So some things I can suggest, it's still gonna probably take some time and effort, but do your best to stick to a real food diet and do your best to avoid gluten, refined sugar, and dairy. Manage your stress. I know this can cause a lot of stress, but do things that can help you manage your stress, whether it's reading or, going on walks with friends or, even seeing a counselor. That can be very, very helpful. But finding things to do that you enjoy that can help manage your stress, sitting out in the sun, whatever that may be that makes you feel good. Get plenty of sleep, at least 8 hours a night. I remember when I was a teen, I wanted to stay out as late as I possibly could get away with. But getting sleep is going to be very, very important. Stay active, but avoid any high intensity training. So no, heavy workouts or long distance running, things like that can wear out your adrenals, which they're probably already worn out. And so it can kind of make things worse. And cultivate fun. I mean, that's one of the most important things, is to still have fun. Don't let this, as I know it can definitely get you down and be discouraging, but do what you can to cultivate fun in your life. Spending time with friends, being social, whatever activities are fun for you, make sure those are part of your routine. Okay, is it okay to take vitamin C and magnesium citrate long term? And this is a great question, and I'm imagining that this person is dealing with constipation, because these are two supplements that can help with constipation. And I would say that yes, these are very safe and natural supplements that will help with constipation. And really, the side effects of overdosing on either of them is loose stools or diarrhea. So that's why they can be a really good natural aid for constipation. They're also good for so many other things. So vitamin C is great for adrenal support. Vitamin C is used heavily in our adrenal glands to produce cortisol. And so supplementing with vitamin C is wonderful for both, motility and making sure that your bowels are staying regular, but it's also great for supporting your adrenals. And then magnesium is great for so many things, but including relaxation and relieving stress, as well as maintaining bowel regularity. Most of us are deficient in magnesium, so I think supplementing with it is a great idea. And the citrate form can definitely help promote bowel regularity. So yes, from the research I've done, from the knowledge I have on this, is that yes, it is safe to continue to take. It's not going to cause you to be dependent on it. It's not harsh like a lot of those over-the-counter laxatives. And these are great nutrients, great vitamins and minerals for your body anyways. However, it's still important to find the underlying cause of the constipation. What is causing it? Because we still want to get to that cause and start treating it. How long should I continue with L-glutamine? So again, L-glutamine was one of those supplements I mentioned above that's great for healing leaky gut, repairing the intestinal lining. There's no set time. The duration is going to be different for every person. It really depends how damaged the gut is. There's no harm in taking it long term. So, I would say maybe do it for 3 to 6 months, see how that's going. If you're still experiencing symptoms of just improper digestion and all of that, then you can continue taking it. It's an amino acid. It's great for you. I would encourage you to take it away from meals, because again, it will compete with the protein in your meal, and you want to make sure that you are getting the biggest bang for your buck and absorbing all of that L-glutamine when you take it. So take it in between meals. Powder form is great. You can just mix it with water, and it's very easy. What are the best probiotics to take? Just Overall, I would recommend that you find a very high quality probiotic that guarantees all of the organisms listed on the label are living. Because so often, so many probiotics out there, um, you may just be, flushing your money down the toilet because once you take the probiotic, the organisms are dead and they're not providing any benefit. So there are some good high quality probiotics that can definitely be helpful. The other thing is look for a broad spectrum. So multiple species of bacteria in that one probiotic. I would look for one that has just a lot of different species and strains of probiotics, not just, 2 or 3. So some of my favorites, a couple, there's Claire Labs. They have one called Therabiotic Complete, and you can get it in capsule or powder form. That's a really, really good brand. There's another one called Prescripticus that's really good, and it uses soil-based microorganisms. And this particular one does have some prebiotics in it as well. So again, you need to test these out because some people with SIBO don't do very well with prebiotics. So, but overall, probiotics are a great thing to supplement with and just find a very high quality one. How do I get rid of my cravings? All right, yeah. So, so many of us experience these sweet sugar cravings or cravings for bread, whatever it may be. But, processed foods and sugar are highly addictive. So, eliminating that from the diet can be tough. And so, just some things that you can really focus on is adding in real food, the proteins, fats, fruits, and veggies to crowd out the processed food, the sugar, and the gluten. So as you do that, you'll find that your body is being filled and nourished and the cravings start to slowly slip away. Also become aware of when you get cravings and how you're feeling, okay? So a lot of times our cravings are not actually related to us being hungry. It's more related to emotions, okay? So maybe you get cravings when you're bored or when you're lonely or stressed, and just bring awareness to that situation. Understand that, okay, I'm not hungry, I'm actually just really stressed out and I need to do something to alleviate that stress, whether it's, getting up from your desk and taking a walk or calling a friend or whatever it may be. Do something else. And, I say fill your voids with primary foods, and primary foods are things that are not food, but that are fulfilling in your life. So things like spirituality or, friendships, relationships, physical activity, things of that nature can help fill the void of those cravings. So going on a walk, enjoying nature, talking with a friend, reading, meditating, any of these things can be very helpful to kind of get your mind off the cravings. And you're actually going to find that you're fulfilled doing these other more nourishing, healthy things for your body. Another reason why the cravings may persist is related to adrenal fatigue. So really supporting, testing your adrenals and supporting your adrenals can help with that as well. How long does it take to heal IBS? Well, I don't have a solid answer for that. It really depends on the individual, how long you've had it, how damaged your gut is, what's the underlying cause. So the best thing to do is to start running tests, to rule out gut infections and adrenal problems. Start implementing a real food diet immediately and add in some of the gut healing supplementation that we talked about. But I mean, it could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take 2 years. It really just depends. All right, so diet changes aren't working. What next? And this is so common. For so many of us, diet alone, it's a great start and it's something you want to maintain and be consistent with, but a lot of times it's not enough. And oftentimes, when diet changes alone don't work, it's because there's some type of gut infection, whether it's a parasite or SIBO or candida or a pathogenic bacterial infection. So again, the next step would be to do the testing. And then if there's an infection, you want to implement, a necessary protocol to help treat that infection. Stick with a real food, paleo style diet, and then add in supplementation for extra support. But, I really encourage you to work with a practitioner that can help customize and formulate a plan for you and help you do some of that testing. What doctors should I see to diagnose and treat IBS? Great question. So I recommend finding someone who takes a functional medicine approach and will really focus on treating the root cause rather than just giving you a medication to help, with your symptoms. It's also good to have a GI doctor who can do some of the other testing, like the colonoscopy and the endoscopy and stuff like that. So if you've already had that done, you've ruled that stuff out, then I would encourage you to find someone who takes that functional medicine approach and will do some of the more functional testing and take a natural approach to healing, because that can be very helpful for you. Any recommendations on how to treat diverticulitis? So this is a little different than IBS. IBS can lead to diverticulitis, but some of the suggestions I would say is, first of all, eat a real food diet. Like cut out the processed food, cut out the grains, cut out the sugar, cut out all of those aggravating foods. The other thing is that there's one diet in particular that has been shown to be very, very helpful in treating diverticulitis, and that is a specific carbohydrate diet. So I would give that a try. Actually, that would probably be the first diet I would try, and start from the beginning. It goes in several phases. There's an introduction phase, and then it goes like phase 1, 2, 3. And so it slowly starts adding in more and more foods. So it's a process, but I would give that a try and commit to it and do it right from the beginning. Is it normal for IBS to go away and then come back? Yes, that can definitely happen. And again, so stress is a big trigger for IBS. It's not the underlying cause of IBS, but it can definitely make symptoms worse. So you may find that, when you're going through periods of low stress that you feel fine, but then when you go through periods of high stress, your IBS symptoms come back. So that is very normal. Chronic stress can make IBS symptoms so much worse, and it can contribute to leaky gut. So I would really look at your stress levels in your life. Also, some infections are cyclical. So there are certain parasites and such that are cyclical. They can become active and then dormant, then active, then dormant. So you may find that your symptoms kind of go in that cycle as well. That's a good sign of, a type of parasite infection, some other types of infections. Changes in diet can also improve or worsen IBS. So if maybe you followed a very clean diet for a while and felt great, and then started to kind of cheat a little bit and get less strict and start eating a wider variety of foods, and your symptoms came back. So it could be due to that. So maybe some of those new foods you've added in aren't serving you, and you may be reacting to them. Also, poor sleep can worsen IBS symptoms. So if you're not sleeping well, then you may find that your symptoms are getting worse. So there's so many things that could be the reason for that. But again, that's why I would really, implement a good diet and a good eating program, and manage your stress and start doing some testing. All right, so those were all of the questions. I think those were fantastic questions. I hope I answered them all to your satisfaction and gave you some good next steps for you to take. Before we get off the call, though, I do just want to offer another bonus to you. If you are really at that point where you're ready to heal, maybe some of this information was overwhelming and you'd like some guidance and some support, then I would encourage you, and let me pull this up. You should start to see it in the right-hand side of your screen. But I would like to offer all of you on this call a free 15-minute consultation. That way we can talk specifically about you, your specific concerns. I can offer you some short-term solutions, and we can discuss a longer-term plan and how we can work together to heal your IBS. So if you see that image on the right-hand side of your screen, click it. It'll take you to a page where you can schedule your free 15-minute consultation, and we'll get a chance to chat one-on-one. I will say that if you're based in the US, then you can just leave your phone number and I'll give you a call. If you are outside of the US, then leave your Skype ID so we can connect that way. Additionally, let me first just see if there are any questions coming through. All right, no questions right now. Okay, great. So yeah, so please go sign up for that free 15-minute consultation. I'd love to chat with you. Additionally, for all of you on this call, if you are ready for a program, for some help, for some support, you're ready to get started, then I want to offer 20% off of my health coaching packages. And there are a few different options. There's a 1 month, a 3 month, and a 6 month. And for all of you on the call, I'll extend that 20% off discount. And I will, let's see if I can pull that up just so y'all can see it. Okay, so when you see that, you should see that on the right-hand side now, 20% off all coaching packages. So you can just click that button that says Learn More. And if you decide on a package, then just use the coupon code IBS20 at checkout. I will go ahead and tell you, I am having a little glitch with my shopping cart. I have someone working on it right now. I know that's just terribly awful timing. But if you do have problems at all, just shoot me an email and I'll come up with a solution for you. So no worries there. But feel free to click there if you want to view any of the coaching packages. Again, I'm going to bring up the 15-minute consult, so you can click on that and schedule your free consultation. And that is now back up. So, so I look forward to chatting with you there. Let me look over again and just see if there are any questions. I don't see any current questions. So hopefully I've answered everything that you were needing answers to. So I really, really appreciate all of you being here. It's such a pleasure chatting with all of you. Feel free to connect with me on Facebook, through my website, whatever. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But definitely start implementing some of these suggestions and hope you start feeling better. Bye for now.